I am Carol Angela Davis. Okay, we all know that the Trump administration pays little attention to expertise and in fact will spread misinformation. The question is, are we willing to die for it? When it comes to the environment, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy proposed a package of legislation that encourages capturing pollution from power plants, which is a good thing, but then it also encourages drilling for oil, which is a bad thing, and they cancel each other out. The legislation also leads to the planting of 1 trillion trees to absorb carbon emissions, which is a good thing, but then it also ramps up logging, which is a bad thing. You're planting new trees, which take a long time to grow up, and you're taking the mature trees that are taking the carbon out of the air, and you're getting rid of them. It makes no sense, and now this lack of logic is bleeding into the coronavirus. That brings me to our slay word, bloviate, for expressing opinions in a dogmatic way. The Trump administration's constant bloviating is going to kill us all if we're not careful. According to the Office of Personnel Management, in the first 2 years of the Trump administration, more than 1,600 federal scientists left government agencies, folks. And you should know Trump's proposed 2021 budget proposal. It includes a 16% reduction in funding for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. You should also know that in the past 3 years of the Trump administration, there's been an exodus of scientists from agencies, from scientific panels that have been re-engineered, folks, frankly, to favor a specific viewpoint instead of favoring the science. As reported by the Guardian newspaper, former regional administrator for the Environmental Protection Agency, Judith Inc., said this, quote, "When I learned more about this virus, my heart sank. Because I know the Trump administration doesn't value basic science. It doesn't understand it, and it tends to reject it when it conflicts with the political narrative," unquote. Anthony Fauci is the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. When he said it could be up to 18 months before we get a vaccine for the coronavirus, Trump responded, "I mean, I like the sound of a couple of months better, if I must be honest." How is that productive? On Fox News, Trump said the World Health Organization's figure of 3.4% as a death rate from coronavirus is really a false rumor. He said that his hunch is that the level is under 1%. He said that without a shred of evidence, people. We have to have really smart people, scientists, to help us get out of this mess, and without it, we may perish. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Vote. Don't get played. I am Carol Angela Davis. I've got your slay word of the week, as you know. And by the way, don't forget to get me on Instagram, Carol Angela Davis, or Twitter, Carol Angela D. But right now, we're going to level up that vocab for ourselves, our family, and friends. We're going to survive the coronavirus. Yes, we are. And when we do, we're ready to level it up, folks. Bloviate. B-L-O-V-I-A-T-E. Bloviate, okay? It is a verb. That means it modifies or describes the action of a noun. It comes from the mid-19th century from English. The definition is to talk at length, especially in an inflated or empty way. We're going to use it in a sentence. She was the head of an organization, but a lot of people questioned her knowledge because she was always bloviating about the most trivial of details and never talking about the substance. Or how about this? No one took him seriously because he was always bloviating about something that had nothing to do with the issue at hand. Okay, instead, everybody just rolled their eyes when he was about to speak because they knew nothing coming after that. Okay, bloviate. We know what the definition is, to talk at length, especially in an inflated or empty way. Now let's go to current events where we know it has meaning. We need our politicians to speak with knowledge and facts when it comes to the coronavirus instead of bloviating about things that don't matter in the race to save our lives, not to mention telling lies themselves. All right, here's another one. No matter the political party, you can count on politicians to bloviate about something, especially when they really don't want to answer the question they've been asked. Bloviate. To talk at length, especially in an inflated or empty way, you know that it comes from the English from the mid-19th century, and you know I'm going to use it every day in my news. Thank you so much for leveling up that vocab, folks, and get me on Instagram, Carol Angela Davis. Get me on Twitter, Carol Angela D. Thanks for watching. I am Carol Angela Davis. Okay, folks. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration says it's been contacted by a drug manufacturer about a shortage of a human drug. Apparently, the FDA has been in contact with 180 manufacturers about their supply levels, and has identified about 20 drugs, folks, that source their ingredients from China. So yes, this is a coronavirus problem because it is a supply chain issue. And that's including supply chain issues for vital pharmaceuticals. So What is at stake here? Well, drug supplier Anda has warned its pharmacists about low levels of respiratory drugs and inhalers, people, as well as antibiotics, alcohol prep pads, face masks, and hand sanitizers. Now, you can see immediately how asthmatics and diabetics could be impacted. That does bring me to our slay word, bloviate, for expressing one's opinion in a dogmatic way. Folks, all the bloviating in the world by the White House about this being a hoax is not going to change the truth, okay? As face masks, hand sanitizers, and rubber gloves fly off these store shelves, folks, pharmacists are quietly fretting about a looming shortage of vital prescription medications. Pharmaceutical manufacturer AmerisourceBergen, guess what? It sent its pharmacists a list of respiratory medications that it's placing on back order because they are in short supply. We're talking nebulizer solutions and 2 types of generic respiratory medications that are used for asthma and other breathing disorders. India is a big supplier of generic drugs to the U.S., and now India says it's restricting imports of 26 drugs and drug ingredients, folks. That does include pain relievers and antibiotics. You should know that India accounts for nearly 1/4 of U.S. medicines and about 1/3 of medicine ingredients. This is serious. Act accordingly. Wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. Stay indoors. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Thanks for watching. I am Carol Angela Davis. Folks, Trump's good buddy, Vladimir Putin. Oh, yes, he's trying to destroy the United States in yet another way. Okay, he's really trying to destroy the U.S. shale oil industry. That is the fracking industry. That's the name you probably know it by. Shale oil is a substitute for conventional crude oil, but it is very expensive to get it out of the ground, to extract it. So, of course, companies need their price to be high enough so that they can make enough money to pay the bills and make a profit. We should also tell you, as you know, fracking is also very hard on the environment. The shale oil industry now in trouble because it has borrowed so heavily to get the oil out of the ground. In addition, the coronavirus is taking quite a toll because factories are closing, airlines are canceling flights, and people are just not commuting like they used to. This is happening all over the world, not just in the United States. In fact, the International Energy Agency says global oil demand is expected to drop this year for the first time since 2009, folks. Vladimir Putin, we know he knows all this, folks. So when Saudi Arabia tried to help the U.S. by keeping the price of oil high enough and cutting production to do it, Russia jumped in and Putin flooded the market with cheap oil to try and hurt the United States. That brings me to our slay word, bloviate, for expressing one's opinions in a dogmatic way. Trump should stop bloviating about Putin being a good guy. He's not. Putin is trying to cripple the U.S., take market share, take all of the market share back from the American frackers. He's mad because Russia used to be the world's largest oil producer, that is until 2018. That's when the United States, due to fracking, knocked Russia off its perch at the top. But now, as a result of Russia's moves, crude oil is now so cheap that many U.S. shale companies are going to be forced to cut production, and that means they won't be able to pay the bills and may be forced into bankruptcy. It all comes at a terrible time, folks, because investors really don't want to invest in big oil because of the climate change issues and also because of their excessive spending. The energy sector was the biggest loser in the S&P 500 last year, as well as for all of the last decade. Now, Texas and North Dakota, these are the 2 states that are expected to suffer the most. And that's because these 2 states are responsible for the majority of the oil and gas production here in the United States. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Thanks for watching. Get me on Instagram and Twitter. Carol Angela Davis on Instagram, at Carol Angela D on Twitter. Thanks for watching. Hey, I'm Carol Angela Davis. You know, I have got your news today. It's Crime News Day, so we're going to North Korea, where there's been an execution, they say, for the coronavirus. Now, reportedly, a North Korean trade official went to a public bath. He left quarantine and went to a public bath, and they walked in there and shot and killed him for breaking quarantine, okay? That's the word from South Korean media and also from the Daily Mail. The official had been placed in isolation after traveling to China. As you know, Kim Jong-un has imposed military law there in North Korea to try and stop the spread of the coronavirus. And they've also closed all their borders with China. Pyongyang announcing that quarantines for certain people are 30 days instead of the traditional 14. Bringing me to our slay word, bloviate, for expressing one's opinion in a dogmatic way. Donald Trump, the great bloviator, always bloviating about Kim Jong-un and how what a lovely relationship. They fell in love. How do you fall in love with this guy? Well, I know, I get it. Donald Trump. That clarifies everything. two peas in a pod. All right, secrecy is usually the way in North Korea, so we may never get the hard evidence that this execution happened, but we're not surprised to hear such a barbaric story coming out of North Korea. Remember that in 2014, Oh Sung-han, the former deputy public security minister, remember him, he was executed in the middle of a stadium with a flamethrower in front of everybody, okay? It has also been reported that Kim Jong-un executed multiple officials using anti-aircraft guns. North Korea, you should know, has not confirmed any cases of the coronavirus within its borders, but some South Korean media outlets are reporting multiple cases of the coronavirus and possible deaths within the country. Now, you should know that separately, it has also been reported that another official who tried to cover up his trip to China has been exiled to a farm within North Korea. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Get me on Instagram, Carol Angela Davis, on Twitter at Carol Angela D. Thanks for watching. I am Carol Angela Davis. I just want to talk a little bit about our democracy. You know, it's interesting. Mitch McConnell tried to destroy our democracy. Donald Trump tried to destroy our democracy. The Republicans tried to destroy our democracy. Vladimir Putin tried to destroy our democracy. Everybody tried to destroy our democracy. And isn't it funny that the one thing that might save our democracy is the coronavirus? Can you believe that? That's right, folks. It's kind of weird, huh? Because here's the deal. The bottom line is this, okay? The coronavirus, unlike the Republicans, particularly Trump and his merry band of nothing but white males running everything, even though Trump discriminates, guess what? The coronavirus does not. How about that, folks? It doesn't discriminate. It's coming after everybody. And that little tiny coronavirus is going to make it so Trump can't hold his rallies. That's right, folks. He's not going to be able to go out in the public and stir up drama, because that's really all he's doing, going out there and performing like it's a big wrestling match, a verbal wrestling match. He goes out there, acts like a fool, calls everybody names, okay, disrespects everybody that he can, and then he gets the people stirred up because they're not thinking, because if they were thinking, they would understand that they were operating against their own interests, because all the while he's talking all that yin-yang to them, he's got a case before the U.S. Supreme Court that's designed to take away Obamacare. So all the people with all the possible coronavirus symptoms and everything else, you're not going to be able to go to the doctor. How about that? While you worship the king, he's laughing behind your back and taking everything from you. So he can't have his rallies where he drums everybody up. He can't do that, which means that he's not going to be able to stoke the fires to get people to run to the polls and vote for him. And number two, guess what, folks? We're going to have paper ballots by mail, because nobody's going to the polls. We aren't crazy, because the coronavirus, even if it stops now, we all know it comes back in the cold weather now that's endemic to our society, because Trump refused to do the work on the front end early enough because it was a hoax, which it isn't. So now we're going to end up with paper ballots. Sorry, Putin. Sorry, Mitch McConnell. You didn't get to disrupt the vote. I'm Carol Angela Davis. God don't like ugly. Thanks for watching. I am Carol Angela Davis. Okay, we all know that the Trump administration pays little attention to expertise and in fact will spread misinformation. The question is, are we willing to die for it? When it comes to the environment, House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy proposed a package of legislation that encourages capturing pollution from power plants, which is a good thing, but then it also encourages drilling for oil, which is a bad thing, and they cancel each other out. The legislation also leads to the planting of 1 trillion trees to absorb carbon emissions, which is a good thing, but then it also ramps up logging, which is a bad thing. You're planting new trees, which take a long time to grow up, and you're taking the mature trees that are taking the carbon out of the air, and you're getting rid of them. It makes no sense. And now this lack of logic is bleeding into the coronavirus. That brings me to our slay word bloviate for expressing opinions in a dogmatic way. The Trump administration's constant bloviating is going to kill us all if we're not careful. According to the Office of Personnel Management, in the first 2 years of the Trump administration, more than 1,600 federal scientists left government agencies, folks. And you should know Trump's proposed 2021 budget proposal. It includes a 16% reduction in funding for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. You should also know that in the past 3 years of the Trump administration, there's been an exodus of scientists from agencies, from scientific panels that have been re-engineered, folks, frankly, to favor a specific viewpoint instead of favoring the science. As reported by the Guardian newspaper, former regional administrator for the Environmental Protection Agency, Judith Inc., said this, quote, "When I learned more about this virus, my heart sank, because I know the Trump administration doesn't value basic science. It doesn't understand it, and it tends to reject it when it conflicts with the political narrative," unquote. Anthony Fauci is the head of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. When he said it could be up to 18 months before we get a vaccine for the coronavirus, Trump responded, I mean, I like the sound of a couple of months better, if I must be honest. How is that productive? On Fox News, Trump said the World Health Organization's figure of 3.4% as a death rate from coronavirus is really a false rumor. He said his hunch is that the level is under 1%. He said that without a shred of evidence, people. We have to have really smart people, scientists, to help us get out of this mess, and without it, we may perish. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Vote. Don't get played. I am Carol Angela Davis. I've got your cannabis news, folks, from Illinois, where all the important cannabis money moves appear to be being made, folks. Well, workers at the Cresco Labs Joliet facility voted to unionize and negotiate what they say is a fair and just contract that's going to improve their working conditions. They'll do it with the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, that's the UFCW, making them the first cannabis workers in the state to have a union. The union's legislative and political director, he says this. He says wages are low there at Cresco for such a profitable company, and adds that though the workers do have health insurance, it is simply too expensive. Cresco Labs employs 562 employees in Illinois, with 2 cultivation centers in the state and 3 currently operational dispensaries. It has plans to open 5 more retail locations, all total. It owns 23 production centers and 22 retail locations, employing about 1,180 people. The first cannabis worker organization drive for a union in Illinois did fail last year by a close vote. I reported it here on this show. But that cannabis industry in Illinois could be worth $2 to $3 billion and generate 65,000 jobs. So it is important to get this right. You should know that right now in Illinois, as many as 3 more national labor unions are currently looking to represent various sectors of the cannabis industry. There's the Service Employees International Union. It has been looking there at approaching the security workers there in the cannabis industry. Okay, there's also the operating engineers. They're looking to work with the maintenance workers. And then, of course, there's the Teamsters, and they have begun organizing cannabis transportation workers. So, boy, is that interesting. Illinois has labor peace agreements written right into those state cannabis regulations. Boy, that Illinois, I tell you. They just make it every day. They have thought of everything. They have obviously looked at other states and done their homework and decided what practices work and what needs some augmentation, and they're putting it right in those laws. This means management must allow union organizing campaigns to proceed without interference, folks. UFCW, you should know. It already represents over 10,000 cannabis workers in 14 states, including California, Washington State, and Pennsylvania. The union began its organizing efforts back in 2007. Now, many are seeing organized labor as an important counterbalance when it comes to the creeping dominance of large corporations in the marijuana business. And folks, let's face it, or in any other sector of the economy, that's why unions work. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Thanks for watching. Hi, I'm Carol Angela Davis. You know, I've got your cannabis news. Okay, if you're in New Jersey, folks, you're going to be happy to know that workers can't be fired for failing a drug test as a result of using medical marijuana. That is the word from the New Jersey Supreme Court, which ruled that these patients are protected under the law against discrimination. The case came about thanks to a man named Justin Wild, who was an employee at a funeral home. He was prescribed medical cannabis after being diagnosed with cancer in 2015. Justin Wild tried to do the right thing, okay, by informing his higher-ups of the prescription the following year after he was involved in a car accident. The physician who treated Wild, though, said this. He treated his injuries from the car accident. Here's what he put in the file. It was clear he was not under the influence of marijuana, and therefore no blood test was required. However, Wild's boss still made him take a drug test before he could return to work, which he didn't pass. Therefore, he was terminated, and he sued for discrimination. And we love the fact that he won. Thank you, Justin. Okay. Now, last year, the appellate court noted the irony in the state law allowing medical marijuana. It's called the Compassionate Use Act. Well, the appellate court noted the irony that the Compassionate Use Act was the very law that allowed the state to discriminate against Wild. Does that make sense? The Supreme Court agreed and said, I don't think so. You should know that medical marijuana, well, it was legalized in New Jersey in 2010. That was done by former New Jersey, Governor John Corzine. He signed that bill into law, making medical marijuana legal his last day in office, people. Yes, he did. All right, and so last month, we should also tell you that lawmakers there in the state of New Jersey, they did initiate some bills aimed at protecting marijuana companies in the state and individuals on workers' compensation that is prescribed for medical cannabis. I'm Carol Angela Davis. Thanks for watching. I am Carol Angela Davis with your cannabis news. Virginia lawmakers, folks, they've done it. They voted to decriminalize marijuana with the passage of a bill that makes possession of small amounts of pot a civil offense. The legislation is now heading to the desk of the Democratic Governor Ralph Northam for his approval. It's called Senate Bill 2, and under it, possession of small amounts of less than 1 ounce of cannabis is going to be considered a civil offense. It'll be punishable by a fine of no more than $25. Now, under the current law, the law they're getting rid of, possession of up to a ½ ounce of marijuana is considered a crime, and it can be punishable with up to 30 days in jail or a $500 fine. Now, lawmakers say here's what it also means. It means that nearly 30,000 people every single year are no longer going to be labeled as criminals and also will not have to suffer the repercussions of a criminal conviction. That is such good news. Now, that bill, it's called Senate Bill 2. It was passed on the final day, folks, of the legislative session by a vote of 27 to 12. That's in the Virginia Senate, and by a margin of 56 to 36 in the House of Delegates. You should know the bill also does include provisions, and I know this is important to people, that allow for the expungement of some criminal and civil offenses related to cannabis. Thank goodness. Okay. Now, the legislators also approved a separate measure. It calls for the study of cannabis. It's the legalization part of cannabis. They expanded Virginia's limited medical cannabis program to formally legalize CBD and THCA oils. Also, we should tell you, medical marijuana patients previously were only given an affirmative defense in court under the previous legislation. Now, finally, we should tell you that Governor Ralph Northam, he did make marijuana decriminalization a goal of his campaign for the governor's office, and we're glad to see he's delivered on his promise. I'm Carol Angela Davis on Instagram, at Carol Angela D on Twitter. Thanks for watching. I am Carol Angela Davis. I've got your cannabis news now. Canadian cannabis producer Canopy Growth says it's closing 2 of its cultivation facilities in British Columbia, people. That means there's going to be layoffs for approximately 500 employees. The facilities shutting down our greenhouse operations in Aldergrove and Delta, British Columbia. The British Columbia operations total 3 million square feet of greenhouse space. That's a lot of space, folks. That is more than half of Canopy Growth's cultivation capacity in Canada. And the company says it's not going to move forward with a cultivation operation it was planning for Niagara-on-the-Lake there in Ontario. You should also know that Canopy Growth is the largest cannabis firm in North America by market capitalization. The Canadian recreational market simply is not growing as fast as Canada thought that it would. The company says these latest moves are a necessary step so that they can ensure that they maintain their leadership position for the long term. I'm Carol Angela Davis.